The most sought-after question that I receive from fans here in Dallas is about line changes. How do the players know when to get on and off the ice? How long are they on the ice for? And who controls the change? With 4 different forward lines and 3 pairs of defensemen, it can get very hectic at times. The structure on the bench and the overall line changes ultimately fall on head coach Mark Crawford. Like good lieutenants, the associate coach and the assistant coaches provide the much-needed support during the lively aspect of the game. When you look at the last game versus the Stars, who played the Columbus Blue Jackets, the average shift length ranges from 30 seconds on the ice to 57 seconds. The higher ice time averages per shift are elevated for those players who play on the power play and the specialty teams. They can stay on the ice longer because the power play is taking less physical toll on a player and shift length increases. Overall shifts in a game can range from anywhere from 6 to 31. It depends on the role that you have with the team. The bench is separated in 2 different groups, defense on one side, forwards on the other. There will be 2 defensemen on the ice most of the time and 3 forwards skating as well. The remaining D will sit together in this area right here. And the surplus of 9 forwards will sit in this area. The forward lines work in threes and sit tightly together on the bench as they get ready for their next transition onto the ice. Now the defense will always be at the end of the same side as their goaltender. Now Kari Lehtinen is in this zone right here, so the defense will be huddled up on the far side of the bench. The reason for that is because you need to exchange defense as close to your own net as possible. The same rule applies for the next forward line that is ready to go out for their shift. The 3 guys up next will be in queue, waiting for their turn to get on the ice as close to their goalie's end as possible on the bench. These 3 right here, well, they're up next. So they wait in this area, which is next to the defenseman. The question is always, how do the players know when to come off? On the bench, if we look at the forwards up next, this group, they will call out the name of the individual on the ice that they will exchange with. When a player steps off the ice, he will usually enter through the gate, and the other player, his replacement, will jump over the boards and enter the on-ice action. Now what's interesting is the game within the game. It's the head coaches from both teams trying to get certain players on the ice, and we call it line matchups. This is when the coaches are trying to outwit each other by getting the proper soldiers on the ice. Now we mentioned that Mark Crawford steers the entire ship and can call lines and D pairings at any time. He is situated here on the bench, shading over to the forward side. It's tough to handle all players in the game, so you will see 3 or even 4 coaches working the bench at one time at the NHL level.
What we've done this year is Charlie runs the defense and I run the forwards. We always communicate with the whole coaching staff before the game about matchups, about who we'd like to see play with who and who we want them to play against. Corrections are made on the bench by Willie a lot of the times. That's his main job on the bench, is he does corrections, and he's giving input to both of us all the time. Stu watches from upstairs for the first period because we want the overview of how things are developing, and then he comes down and he'll also make corrections, and he's acting as a spotter from the ice surface. So he acts as a spotter from up top at the start of the game, and then from the bench from that period on.
With the head coach handling the forwards, let's look at the defense. Charlie Huddy will be in this position right here behind the bench and will work to rotate the defense on and off the ice. Charlie works to make sure the correct D pairing is out and also to give feedback to his troops.
My job is just to change the defense, shift by shift, and hopefully make the right decisions, try to get the right matchups out there, and just do some corrections for the D and try to help them out if there's some things that we see, and all the coaches are just kind of relaying message, and we pass them on to the defense.
The question is, how do you know what D pairing you want out there at any given time?
We try to watch the other forward line that's coming out before we go into the game. We talk to Mark, and he kind of lets me know what matchups he'd like to see, and we try to do it. It's obviously a little easier at home because we have last change, a little bit tougher on the road, but just the opposition's line that's coming out, we try to match certain D against certain lines.
With Coach Crawford working the forwards and Charlie taking care of the D, where does associate coach Willie Desjardins fit in as we see him here in this area on the bench, and what are his responsibilities?
I think it varies a little bit. In the first period, I'm down with the forwards, so I'm talking more with the forwards on just different things they need to do and make them aware. And then the second, third period, I'm down with the defense with Charlie. So I kind of communicate with him on the defense a little bit and relay messages from from Mark down, and in the first period I got the headset as well, so I'm listening to what's happening up top.
Everybody loves Willie's intensity and intelligence. He's also the guy that is holding on to the clipboard like a school teacher.
I don't do a lot with the board. I used to use quite a bit, but if I ever want to diagram anything on the bench, I have it. I don't diagram very much, but late in games or things like that, that way I have it, and I keep my lineup card on it. So I talk a little bit, to guys on different, things, and maybe my biggest thing is trying to make guys aware of what's coming, like try to get them focused on their next shift.
Stu Barnes gets a good look from upstairs in the first. So fans, we don't see him on the bench early in game. He reappears in this area right here, and he discusses what he's doing in the first period and how he brings that information closer to the game.
First period, we're just kind of looking for tendencies, things that, we've talked about pre-scouted before the game. What the other team does, any kind of systems, forechecks, neutral zone, mid-zone systems, and kind of, basically talking back and forth about that, and then come down for the second and third, and I'm just kind of helping out with the forwards, catching the small things that go by. Obviously, Crow and Charlie and Willie have their hands full with changing lines and things like that, and for me, it's just kind of catching all the extra stuff that gets slipping through the cracks.
Another area Stu utilizes his knowledge is that of the all-important first battle of every series, the face-off. He does share face-off tendencies with his key centerman.
We usually talk about it a little bit on the bench. The guys are real good about give and take as far as feedback, and we track face-offs in zone, defensive and offensive, wins, losses, that kind of stuff, and we'll talk back and forth on who's hot and who's going well or who they're struggling with, and what the other team's trying to do or what we're trying to do. So.
Going into a contest, the game plan is set, but the adjustments that are made in this area on the bench, they can give your team a great advantage. The next time you're at a Stars game, take a minute, let your eyes filter down towards the bench area. You should now have a better appreciation for the game as you watch the battle that is being waged between Mark Crawford's staff and the Stars' opponent that night.